So welcome everybody. And the reason I thought about this format is because, well, basically because I'm feeling kind of guilty because of things that are published about EventStorming, not so many, and I'm writing the book, and I feel a lot of pressure about finishing it, but still there's so many people starting to practice it, and there's a little bit more than it's already available, so I needed to find something to, put things in the right place in some way. So I've been doing it a lot. I don't know if this number is exactly real. It's probably not so precise here, but well, I think even 3M saw a spike in the consumption of usage of orange sticky notes. So we were talking about a worldwide phenomenon now. It's just really hard. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and a little bit about the story of EventStorming. Like everybody, just in this room, I guess you're having a hard time explaining your job. Avance Cooperative is my company, but I still don't know what is my job. I think it doesn't have a name. What do I do is just I try to model basically everything with sticky notes, markers, and a paper roll. And yes, I started to call this thing EventStorming. How it started, this stuff? The whole thing started almost by chance. Just like I was... at that time, I was going around with an IKEA paper roll in my backpack. Don't ask me about why, but that was my way of working. And some people from the Italian DDD community organized a meetup exactly with this purpose. I have this problem. I would like to see your aggregates. I would like to see how would you model that. And okay, there's no time to use UML. Took the paper roll, put my sticky notes over there, and modeled the whole stuff. And I realized, okay, where's your model? And everybody was silent and looking at me. What did you do? I just modeled the process that we were talking about. What did you do? And I mean, well, nothing. Okay, looks like I had something in my pocket. Then it became a training tool for learning aggregates for people that didn't have a DD background. Then it became something more. I mean, we started making more and more experiments, and probably the tipping moment has been when I was a special guest at Von Vernon's IDDD tour, and we were in a room full of people. I mean, a lot of speakers from this conference were actually in that room on that day. And a lot of people started experimenting, adding variation, bringing me a lot of good feedback and many other things. So that was just the beginning of a long journey. And now in 2017, it's growing. A lot of people are starting. People that I never met are already using it, and they are happy. But the thing that is bothering me is just like I never really clarified the different formats in a nice way. It's just like I said in some cases, like it's getting more like a pizza with multiple recipes. Here I'm going to talk about the different recipes and the different ways to use it. So let's start from the big picture. The big picture is probably the most famous or shocking if you've never been in one of them. Because, well, the recipe is relatively easy. You invite the right people, business, IT, maybe user experience. And it's already a problem, some organization. Just like, how do I invite the right people? They're not coming. I'm just a developer. My boss is not showing up. Second thing is just provide unlimited modeling space. Well, it's a little bit of a hack. I have a paper roll. It's usually long enough to contain everything that we need. But it's also a limited number of markers, stickies, and that is the thing that is making people feeling weird. Like, well, the whole business line. We are so using, let's focus on a portion. Let's only talk about this, that we forget the big picture. Well, for one day in your life, let's see about the whole thing. Let's try to understand how this company is making money, how this organization is delivering value. It doesn't have to be greedy necessarily. It's a lot like discovering what is a collaboration that brings value to the users, members, whatever. How do we do that? In practice, well, after giving these tons of orange sticky notes and markers, we try to work on a timeline. And yes, there's some facilitator magic because the first 5 minutes well, actually last 2 minutes in an EventStorming are really what the hell is going on here. And this awkward feeling can be paralyzing for some people. So somebody pretend to be dead, and you know, these usual tricks. And but then it works. Then it starts working, and it's surprising. Like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa! Is this what we're doing? That's actually big. I wasn't thinking this was going to be possible. And the other building block is orange sticky notes, domain event, orange, verb at past tense, and relevant for domain expert. We put everything on a timeline. It's not as easy as it gets. Usually gets messy, then we try to order it later. But at least you start to see progressively something that looks like everything. And I feel like, OK, now it's something I can control. Now it's something I can analyze. It's something I can put some layers of structure or extra thing. What is the problem behind it? Why is this so interesting? I think the big lie in software development is the feeling that we just need to understand the business and translate it into working code. Or there are requirements. I just gave you the requirements. You just have to translate it into code. That's totally crappy. I mean, it's never going to work in that way. And it's assuming, it's living in this little bubble, assuming that, well, the business guy knows the business. No, that's not exactly true. I mean, they know very well their own portion of the business, but they're still living in a place like this one. I mean, silos in the organization, these are silos. I'm sorry for if somebody thought something different, but everybody thought something different. I'm sorry about it. The real thing here is the culture. Nobody knows our stuff better. Oh, we are really good. The other departments really suck. And it's not our problem. I mean, in many organizations, you see that there is this kind of unhealthy competition. Like every department just wants to be the second worst. The worst one is usually the IT department, always late, and then you're providing, the backup plan for the rest of the organization. And everything is fine, still we are the second worst, and we don't have really to care about the whole stuff. And if you think about the resulting knowledge in a place like that, I mean, you cannot really trust these people. They look trustworthy, and that might be the problem, but you can't. So this is more or less how the knowledge is distributed in an organization like this. Diverging options, well, good idea, but then here we have little conflicts, and then, well, this stuff, this office, that there is one guy living in this office. Nobody knows what this office is meant for, and after you're in production, you discover you should have talked with this guy. And there are mysteries, people that left the company, knowledge that is lost, and all of this possible stuff. Can you translate this one into requirements? I'll say, no. I mean, there's something that is intrinsic in software development. It's just like, gossip does not compile. You cannot put ambiguity in production, so you can't rely on this. But ambiguity within humans works pretty well. I mean, the result is not to make a fantastic process. The goal for many people is just like, we're just happy to be the second worst. If everything fails for somebody else's fault, let's put the blame on them. Easy stuff. Survival, that's how it works in many organizations. I can't turn this stuff into software. So instead of asking things to people, pretending that they're telling me the right thing, I just try to put them, all of them, in the same room and try to see if they can build together a consistent story, a consistent narrative of what their business is. And if there are ambiguities, whoa, they will surface. They're going to be so visible in front of my eyes. How do I make them visible? This way. The typical behavior, this is a little bit more specific to corporate. The expert will post a locally ordered sequence of events. They know their job pretty well. This is what I do. Pum, 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 pum. This is me. And the moment you put their own timeline in the same place with the other department timeline, you realize that, oh shit, you gotta talk. You just, there's something that you never clarified and so on. So my tool is purple sticky notes. For some reason, you can't have real red with the Post-its. That's the second best. And so we put this little annotation. We say, OK, this is where things are going wrong. OK, It's visible. We take notes. It's our learning notepad. It's just huge. And what happens? Structure will emerge. You start to see some separation between different concerns, departments, different goals. You start to see how people know some areas, and while different people know some other areas. You might even display users, roles, external system, and everything. And every time you add something, well, people, oh, I never thought of this. You add more types of conversation. You had more awareness. A lot more stuff. The outcome starts becoming interesting. The whole process is now visible. Just no excuse not to make it visible. You have space, you have markers, you have time, and it's not that slow. We can see that. And then, oh yes, then you get this moment of awareness, like, oh, this is what our company is doing. And the other great thing is just that happens in many companies. Just you learn what your colleagues are doing. It's not what people are going into EventStorming for, but actually companies learn a lot about themselves. And in practice, this means we start to see narratives, stories, user journeys from the beginning to the end. And this might be the value generation path. This might be just what happens in the flow. The thing is visible. It's a good narrative. Even a kid can understand it at this level. It doesn't have to be hard. I mean, if your business is so complicated that your employees don't understand it, you're not in a great position on the market. And yes, many stories are visible. They are storytelling, and humans started aggregating as a race just around storytelling, stories around the fire. Legends means our stories, not requirements, and just so this works really, really well. Other little tricks, incremental notation. We are not using UML, BPMN. We are using the simplest possible notation that allows everybody to join the conversation. And in this way, we can have a conversation with people coming from different tribes, backgrounds. So lean is fine, user experience is fine, agile, software development, organization design, pure business, whatever. There's no choosing a strict notation is excluding people from the conversation. Defining the notation on the fly with some, professional touch just helps the conversation to happen. So the net result, after exploring, after extending the boundaries of our exploration, is just we touch also external systems and people. I mean, everything that could go wrong is now visible, which means that the key problem, the bottleneck, is now in the picture. The bottleneck is the way I describe it coming from theory of constraint. For DDD people, more or less the same idea is the core domain, is the area where an improvement to the system will make a difference. It is visible, it is there, and it's probably not so disputable. So what we have as a result is this moment of clarity. Wow, this is what we have to do. So this clarity in my eyes and in participant eyes, I hope, is just now we have a clear business narrative. We have a blocker somewhere. And don't want to talk about the patterns. What we do is we now let the people select what do you think is the most important thing, and then people start to vote. And well, you might have outliers somewhere, but mostly what we get in an existing organization is more or less the thing. So at the end of the whole day, you explore the whole flow, and you have arrows of people voting autonomously around one thing. So this is basically what I do at the end. This is my business model. Just kicking the butt of the organization. That's the thing you have to do. Just put the people in the room, understand what is the right thing to do. Oh, now it's obvious. More than half of the people in the room say, like, this is the most important thing to say. Basically, it's the end of the story. And with a little bit extra awareness that is necessary, we are touching the thing with the highest priority that will bring us quickly in a no backlog state of mind. Why should we have a backlog? Oh, we have so many things to do before doing the most important thing. Or usually for a company, I mean, if you find the real key problem for an established company, I'm not expecting this problem to be easy. I mean, the company is full of smart people. You have a problem, it's probably really hard. Well, how much time would it be needed to solve this very hard problem that we were not able to solve in the last 5 years? You just have, a couple of sprints. No, it doesn't make any sense. I'm going to try hard till I solve it. Oh, but I need an estimate. No, I won't give you. I just try hard till I solve it. And it requires experiments. And this is one of the areas where domain-driven design and the culture of, Whirlpool model or lean startup, continuous evolution is learning. It's, I had a definition for domain-driven design that fits very well here. Is domain-driven design is an approach to software where you can't do things right at first attempt, where you need to iterate, try again, learn more till you find the solution. And this means, like, again, we are in this place, but we are trying hard till we find the right solution. So the best attitude for me to describe this situation is, now I'm Dr. House. And just like, I have no idea, but this patient is now dying, so I will try. It's probably lupus, by the way, but I will try with steroids and whatever and see what happens, how the system reacts till we find the solution. And two things, you don't ask estimates to Dr. House, and you don't ask Dr. House to treat patients with a normal flu. That doesn't make any sense. But just for special ops. So a little bit of a difference. I did it in a startup, and this is a piece of cake, invitation. Well, everybody in the same room. They are already in the same room. They have only one room, the poor guys. And so it's great. Maybe they don't have enough walls, so we can rent a room. Great attitude, and this is a little bit of a problem. Like the moment we solve the thing, we do something really brilliant. They can't compare it with the past, so it looks like, easy stuff, dude. And it's not. We just saved them something like 6 months of development, and they didn't realize it. Big picture in a mature company, that's a different story. What is the main difference between a mature company and a startup? This one. A startup is still innocent. They didn't commit any crime against good design. And they have all of these bad skeletons in the closet, these bad architectural choices or business choices. I mean, there's past decision that probably led them exactly to the trap they are in, and that is problem number one. So inviting people, it's already a mess. Sometimes, I mean, I run 1 or maybe 2 days workshop, and it might take something like 2 months in order to have the people accepting the fact that they will have to be there in a meeting. Underlying conflicts, I mean, I've seen, no, I can't tell how many things I've seen, but I mean, so much personal issues. So corporate dysfunction, yes, a long list. Legacy implementation, dungeon masters, the author for legacy implementation, they're still having a bad influence on the company. All of this stuff is there. So I'm not expecting this to proceed smoothly. It's actually, okay, this is a shark pool, let's dive. But that is what is happening in places like that. Special tricks might be interesting. One is incremental notation. Like I have a plan, but I can pull my plan away if there is a better idea. So we leave the people the possibility to choose what is the next thing you would like to see. And that helps shaping the notation, the discussion around the interests of the participant. And the other thing, this is weird, because at the beginning I thought like it's me being unprofessional. And then I realized, no, I'm actually doing this for a reason. So maybe it's gut feeling turning into a principle. I don't provide definition. I mean, I provide something really, really fuzzy, like, well, we have sticky figures. Are they users, actors, role, or personas? Well, they are whatever. I call them people, and I don't want to give a precise definition. If I give a precise definition, I exclude something. If I give a fuzzy definition, well, you put in something visible, and then we have a conversation about why this is this thing or the other one. I don't care about precision. I need to see things, and then, well, we trigger good conversation. it took me a little bit to arrive at this point, and also a lot of time to make up this rainbow type of formatting on this page. But it started like a tool for developing aggregates. Now it's also a tool for discovering capacity of a company to deliver value, or for an organization to be healthy, and also to have a cross-perspective communication. So we use the same format to deal with service designer, user experience designer. We use it also for doing value stream, and trying to understand how to improve companies, organization, or software. Notation is in the way. The problem is the same one. It's around the business storytelling, and you can bring many more actors, personalities, and skills around the same, well, it's not a table, around the same modeling surface, and discover and discuss things. Notation was in the way. So that's the main recipe for the big picture. And the goal is, with Discover is, massive learning, a lot of risk reduction, and usually a pretty good kick in the butt. Process modeling. This is what happens once we highlighted that some areas are really, really worth exploring and modeling. And here we have a little bit more of structure. So the scope might be epic or a set of features, or I don't believe in strict notation like, oh, this is a user story. Oh, no, this is an epic. Oh, no, this is an initiative. Oh, I hate taxonomies. So usually we challenge each one of them. We just know that something is starting usually from a command and ending with a set of domain events which are good for the system, but you have users, and users need to see read models. They need to see that one thing is happening, but it's also readable for them. And of course, I don't trust this one, so this is a good area for discovering things. And I don't trust this one written in the user story, because, well, you didn't thought about it deeply enough. So yeah, let's do the exploration together. That's the problem with user story for me. Like, some people define it like a placeholder for future conversation, and now I see these two main dysfunctions. Dysfunction number one is just like the conversation is, what the hell does this index card means? And we have to deliver it for Friday, and the product owner is away, and we have to do, throw the dice. I think he meant that. Anyway, whatever fits the three as I want to, in order to sentence of the template might be the good user story till the demo. Or the user story is just having the number for the specification as an attachment in Jira. So maybe 4 pages of boring stuff that has been written by somebody in the ancient times, and then you have to finish this boring thing. No, they're both badly dysfunctional. And so for me, like, I have this placeholder, and I have EventStorming as a way to structure this conversation. It doesn't take much time, and we just get to model the flow by using these building blocks. The more I played with this, the more I ended up with a repeatable structure that actually looks like as dumb as that. So it's color puzzle thinking. You have a read model. A user is making a decision based on that and deciding to, click this button. This goes, maybe to a system, to our system, to external one. The result of this, elaboration, processing is the domain event. And then we might have a policy like, an item was purchased, and our policy is whenever there is a purchase, we might go and, create the corresponding receipt for that. But the thing which is relevant here is just like, we have a conversation like this one. We need a lilac between the orange and the blue. So it's actually just color coding. A command might go into an external system, triggers an event. Then we need the policy between this and another command. Color thinking. Even people with no exposure to software development can join the conversation. And the main goal of this step is to investigate these policies. The lilac thing is the little riddle that I tell to myself is whenever something happens, then we react in this way. So whenever event, then command. And the rule is just this one. Why are they important? Well, because they define your company. They define exactly your behavior, and you might have the whole spectrum. Like they might be implicit, like people doing things because that's what they're used to, maybe even without an explicit agreement. Or there are rules, there is an agreement between your peers, but you might discover that, well, the agreement is not followed, and so on. The more your size of your company increase, the more automation you have. You might have listeners or IFTTT type of thing, or something more sophisticated, sagas, process manager, and so on. Everything is in the policy spectrum. And at this level, we're mostly challenging the business narrative, like, well, why do you do this? Oh, well, we do this. Well, maybe it's not exactly this. Well, I don't do exactly that. Well, if we find inconsistencies before writing software is actually gold. And discovering that the boss told you one story and the workers are telling you a different story, and discovering that this thing is not real, it's pretty interesting at this time. I don't want to write software to discover that I was wrong. No, I can discover that a lot better. Another way of thinking on this level, it might be this idea of challenging value. So every step, I mean, we're still talking in storytelling way. Users are doing given thing for a reason. And we might want to see what is this reason. Every step in the flow can create or destroy value for a given user. So the idea, at the beginning, people start thinking about, yeah, here is where we get the money. Here's when the customer gets the item he bought for, end of the story. Well, no, then you might find out that, well, at the given moment, somebody is happy because something is happening, or because something is not happening. And so you start modeling also negative events, or the absence of events. And then you start considering, like, well, happiness is also a different type of currency. It's not only money. It's not only goods. Then you start including, well, something like anxiety, or reputation, or personal satisfaction. And you start to realize that people are doing things along the way, and you are missing some opportunities to make people happy along the flow, or to reduce some of this anxiety, and you can streamline the flow not only for mechanical consistency, that's what we are good at, but also for emotions and yes, happiness in sometimes. And it's funny because, oh, well, this looks a lot like a customer journey type of approach. Yes, pretty close. I just didn't choose any notation in this case and just let this emerge. But even if you don't have a customer journey expert in your room, just asking for this value, simply putting the question, you have brains in the room, you have people, you have humans who have sensibility. Even if we are nerds, we have some sensibility sometimes. And yes, you can ask this question, then you realize you can do a better job. And it's just as simple as adding a couple of extra colors to the model. Maybe it's not perfect, but it's way better than nothing. And we just do it in, 20 minutes, half an hour. It's just very, very, very interesting. Once again, the tool, the flexibility of this platform is just enabling cross-perspective conversation. I'm exactly reusing the same slide, but here's the area where we had pretty good feeling with people coming from user experience and service design, and there is no reason to keep these discussions separated. That doesn't make any sense to have developers isolated from the value or happiness generation type of conversation and just do stuff. No, just response speed is not enough to make people happy. And of course, yes, never said it's easy, but we can actually do that. And what is the problem for making these things easy? Big picture is for discovery. I try not to enforce any agreement. I might have up to 30, 35 people in the room. And if I try to reach consensus between all of these people, it's a job in itself. So I will have some mapped inconsistencies along the flow. But when you put designers, software designers, and process designers, and business analysts in the same room, try to reach a consensus about this is exactly what we want to do, well, this is hard. So it needs some discipline, tricks, and yes, it might be feeling, again, like really awkward. What are we supposed to do? The thing is, we are never really trained in modeling in a collaborative fashion. I mean, case tools, UML diagrams, it's you, your mouse, maybe a colleague that is pretending to look at your screen. But it's not really a collaboration. Even whiteboard modeling, it's way better, but you have one marker. You don't write easily on somebody else's model. You take terms, and it might be a really, really cruel sport. But when everybody can write and move things around, it's a lot more collaborative. Third recipe is software design. We are changing the recipe a little, so we might have a command going into an aggregate and resulting in a domain event, or still going into an external system. Well, the policy has still all the spectrum, and yeah, just notation is slightly different, but not that much. Again, more or less the same thing. That's a scope, an epic or a set of features, and not so much, so many difference. Talking about aggregates, the thing to look for is, yeah, kind of a state machine type of logic, focusing on the behavior, not data. Actually, the whole trick about learning aggregates through EventStorming is you get to the aggregate like the last thing. You just find out everything else that happened in the system, so that in terms of commands and events of behavior, so that the aggregate become obvious. Like there must be something here between the blue and the orange. That's more or less the EventStorming definition of the aggregate, is the yellow thing between the blue and the orange. And if you postpone naming, if you don't go for, oh, this clearly has to be a user, this is clearly a customer, this is an order, and well, I know everybody tries to look smart in the room, but yes, if you can postpone the naming, because as everybody else, you feel like you need an order because an order has, yeah, a customer and a total amount and all of this information. No, you're still thinking data. We are trying to think on behavior. Then you look like, which are the bits of information triggering a given behavior? And this is the key content of the aggregate. The other information, well, depends on the implementation. Might be redundant. You just propagate them through events, or you can hold them inside. That's a matter of style. But the role of the aggregate in the flow is a little local decision making. I would accept or reject a given command based on my internal state. That's what we're going to write inside here, and through that we can understand what is the plausible name of this aggregate. So the other holy grail for a conference like this one is the idea of ubiquitous language. And at the large scale, big picture exploration, it turns out really obvious that we won't have one, even if many companies still confuse an enterprise language with the idea of ubiquitous language, or even worse, some people want everybody to speak their own language. Great idea, is not going to work. One little recommendation, well, one reason why it's not going to work is, well, people are living in departments. Their own internal conversation is consistent. You're trying to change their names because you're putting things inside the same box, the cylinder thing rotating where you put names and you're pretending that you're making architecture. And but the moment you put the two things together inside the same rotating cylinder, you're just finding all this name clash, so you start using composite names in order to solve this problem. So this is not an order, this is an order history, and this is a purchase order instead, and you try to make this distinction. And then you discover that users are not, and stakeholders are not talking with your language. They're just calling them order and customer, end of the story. And you know why? Because it's not their problem. I mean, it's your problem of putting things inside the same box and try to find a way to distinguish them. They don't put things in the same box. So it's your problem. You won't have any empathy from the rest of the company because you're solving a problem that they don't have. So if you accept the fact there will be multiple languages that will form an inconsistent whole, well, that would be better. Except that with domain events, the consistent whole might be taking the shape of a good, well-shaped dictionary of specific domain event. It might take a little, but that thing is the only portion of language that has some hope of becoming lingua franca overall the organization. But at this level, one of the funny things is just like everybody thinks they know exactly the name of the thing, and we are trying to introduce consistency. Big picture, we accepted almost everything. And in software design, we end up refining a lot of things. So yeah, we can't do things right at the very beginning. Symmetries are starting to tell us something like, well, you see a command which has the resulting event. Normally, at the very beginning, sorry, I just touched. At the very beginning, yeah, feels like this is too trivial. If I have a command which is say buy item and an event saying item bought, is that really what EventStorming is all about? Am I really wasting my time rephrasing verbs at the past to verb at present tense? No. The thing is sometimes, I mean, not every problem is complex, but where symmetries are lacking, that's where your brain should start thinking, why is it not symmetrical here? Maybe there is a concept which is missing, or maybe there are two more concepts conflicting, and usually developers are looking for a winner, and I'm looking for a new challenge to see, because maybe both concepts might have a reasonable purpose, and that they need to be both in the picture. And also, you might find a lot of places where you're looking for symmetries, but in order to reach them, you're killing some part of the language. And one of the key areas is usually when things are seen from the customer perspective on the outside, and instead, from the inside, you see things which speak in a different, more complex language, and the two things should not match. Oh, yes, we were looking for a ubiquitous language. No, not really. Actually, one of the hardest things for people, for DDD practitioners, just like once they understood the problem really well, they found a very complex model who's taking care of every single corner case, and in a brilliant way, we can master everything. So what do? Well, we expose this really complex model to the user, showing, well, look at this is fantastic. It's not the user problem. What you have to do usually is try to, that's your brilliant solution, hide it. Nobody should know about it. I mean, that's what Google does. It's not telling, oh, look at all of these options you can have for searching. No, put your string here, make it look like it's magic. But we are so proud of our discovery that normally we feel like showing them. I understood it. Not yet. You will understand it when it's completely hidden under an incredibly simple UI. So, and yes, brute force does not work. If you are going for premature optimization, if you're feeling like it's easy and, oh, it's just this, that we just need this aggregate class is going to solve everything. No, that's not going to work. So the best indicator for success in a modeling session is actually how much trash are you making. That's the best thing. Couple of little things. Read model. Apparently, is just data. They are not. It's a little switch. Like my definition of read model is the data needed for a user to take a given decision. Well, that will result in a command by item. But the moment you think about this user in a given step of the process, what is the data needed? How can I make these decisions simple? Has nothing to do with the data available on the database. Is what is making me make the right choice? Typical example, timesheet. As every Italian, I'm late with the timesheet, and as every developer, I hate filling up the timesheet. How do you fill the timesheet when you are 3 weeks late? Well, what is your read model? Your read model is Google Calendar. Where was I supposed to be on that day? Well, maybe my GitHub commit list. I was working on that thing. Maybe my phone record for that day, the email I've sent. OK, that's more or less what I've done in that day. That's my read model. Can I put it in decent screen so that is giving me the hint to solve this problem? Yes. But, I mean, read models are not exposing data. They are decision-making tools. And we are trying to make users go through a streamlined flow. And yes, don't get reuse get in the way. Let's put a page where we show all the data that we can reuse for every possible decision in the flow. No, it doesn't work. And sorry, this creates a wave of, I won't do it again. And OK, we can't do this without a product owner. We need the business in the room. Because without the business, we will be exploring corner cases which are not going to happen in reality. And we will need to make some choices that has nothing to do with the elegance of the software, the coolness of the implementation. We need product owner. We need to challenge and to be challenged by the business choice. And to make selection, to make, well, we can even make shortcuts. I can accept shortcuts if they are conscious. I don't accept knowledge shortcuts. Let's do a stupid implementation first, and then we see. No, if we know that the good implementation is complex, but it's just relevant for 1% of the use cases of the user base, then we can skip it or defer it. But we know that in this case, we will need something like that. Just being dumb is not a real good strategy. And if we can know things in a relatively cheap way, that is fine. I mean, we're not delivering it for the next sprint, but we know that this thing is going to look like that, so our implementation is a little bit more future-proof. It's all a matter of time. If you waste 3 weeks exploring, then it's maybe wasted. If you get to the same result in half an hour, well, this half an hour is really good. Design style. It's funny because it might look like overkill. Like, do we really need to do this for every feature? Well, no, I'm creating the red carpet approach. We are on the core. We are trying, making experiment. We need different development style from supporting subdomains. So there is no over-design. We are in the place that is making gold plating, not gold plating. We are gold creating. You move us to a different portion of the system. Are we going to iterate a lot, making experiment on how to implement logging or security? No. Security is exactly the place where if you do a good job, nobody knows about you. If you screw it up, everybody will know your name. And you're going to find messages written on your car in the parking lot, all this stuff. And, but if you are in the right place, this is where experiments pay off. And how do we know that we're over? It's just what I call this Bruce Lee state. Well, I don't have the right picture, but it's basically when you feel like some more requirements, please. So that's basically it. And when you challenge your system with all the possible, corner cases, you tried and you feel like, yes, we can do it. It is sound. We just separate it. This thing is happening in this bounded context. Then it goes there. Here, we challenge it there. Yeah, it makes sense. You look at the face of the people like, yes, we can put this in production. We can really make it. That's where you feel like, OK, guys, open the IDE. Let's make this flow real. So takeaways. I'm actually closing. First thing is, as I said at the beginning, EventStorming is just like a pizza, has many possible recipes. And so we have domain events in the timeline, which is just like a tomato and mozzarella for a pizza. Then you add whatever you want with a couple of exceptions. So no database tables, no pineapple. And second thing, Domain events, they are working very well as lingua franca. They are a better choice for describing the business and implementing the supporting software. It's not because we wanted to go into event-driven architecture. It's not because we wanted to go into event sourcing. Events are a better candidate for being the ubiquitous language. Business is speaking in domain events. The policies, people are reacting where something happens, not because any information is in the database. Was the key. And events are really, really good in this sense. So what happens? You might just end up having your independent bounded context, and this is good language on the boundaries. What happens? You might discover along the refinement that some information is very fine-grained inside a given area, and it might need a more general purpose type of description. Many possible things, and progressively we will end up discovering them around the possible discussion. One of the things which is interesting, just like we are using the same building blocks from a very high-level vision type of conversation with the CEO or the board of the company to the implementation. It just allows zooming and allows, backward zooming. So it might allow. We are still talking about events, big picture, process modeling, software design. We see conflicts, goals, blockers, boundaries, and I mean, this is the same story, just at different levels of zooming. We can go back and forth, realize that the vision was inconsistent or that the process was not viable. We can move up, up and down, and it works. So we can have this story going up and this story going out. Final thing, just this is a pretty good platform for self-organization. After seeing this one, there's this limit, like people won't self-organize around a system they don't understand. Just, I'm removing a blocker. I cannot guarantee that people will finally now self-organize. They won't self-organize if you threaten them for many other reasons, whatever. But this is a big blocker. If the system is clear, understandable, you can see some very many magic things happen. This is what happens in our company. We have EventStorming for having newcomers in the company. We have a policy of radical transparency. All the business numbers are available to everybody. And the culture of rewarding exploration. What happens? People are making experiments. They are improving the organization even when I'm not around. So I'm kind of happy. And it ended up being also this one, a tool for a purpose-driven organization. Who are we making happy? That's actually the whole thing. That was my closing slide. So I am okay to take pictures, to take questions, and accept this one. And so, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have time for a couple questions. Anybody has one? Sure.
This is my first time to hear the event storming. Within my company, we practice the safe, the scaled, agile. We have a concept of feature grooming. Mm-hmm. And I see a lot of commonality of that. The stickers, colorful stickers, the wall of paper, and going to event, discuss the conflict, potential challenge, all those kind of things. My question is, what are the differences?
Well, I don't know exactly how they do it in SAFE. So there are a few similar approaches for discovering at the feature level, user story mapping, or well, I actually don't know what is the format for SAFE. The thing which is relevant for us is just we are starting to build a story, and the story, the business has to be consistent at the very beginning. So it has to make sense, and we find that usually we end up finding inconsistencies on the day one of the exploration. So established companies with making a lot of money, with a lot of employees, you just make the business visible. It doesn't make sense. There are holes and bumps and unnecessary frictions, And this is the thing that we want to discover as soon as possible. Also, we look at the friction between the people. So it's not about the model. Are we able to make those people cooperate toward that goal? This is exposed during the big picture. And if it's just already scoped around the software, some of the key players might not even be in the room. So it's my approach to get into a no bullshit state, more or less, inside the company. Then, well, this is a good way to shape the conversation for me because of the last round we are progressively adding precision. Then it's just like, well, this really looks like software to me. We never injected software from the very beginning. We just still try to model a value generation process, and then I just need the idea. I'm feeling so close to that. So yeah, that what happens. Different format, and then but we're really trying to optimize for the overall value generation for the users involved. Yeah, that's. Thank you.
Thank you for the talk. It was great. So, are you familiar with the work of David Alacrim, who is the coiner of the complex event processing term? Because, I mean, I just wondered, because there is a notion of event model of the organization, and he argues like importance of it. And I'm wondering if you have any influence from his works.
Not directly, but I mean, events are there, facts, things that happen. You don't need to learn this concept from somewhere else. It's just like, whoa, things are happening inside the organization. People react to things happen. It was, I mean, for me, it was just like, why did it take us so much time to get there? It just, so no influence, but feels like obvious once you discover that. But now I'm curious, so yeah.
Okay, we'll do one more question.
Hello. So we are a group of about 25 to 30 developers split into 4 teams, 5 to 6 developers in each. So for such an organization, would you imagine everybody coming together and doing event storming, or would it be a team-based activity? How many people are too many in a room?
Well, I managed up to 35, and nobody asked me for anything more than 35, so I don't know. It worked pretty well with this company. It takes a lot of space and organization. There might be good techniques in order to split and partition. Like game storming is a pretty good source for that. So I would say the time needed might not grow linearly. So it might be a lot of merge and well, split and merge type of thing. But I would say it's still viable. I mean, to me, the thing that doesn't make sense is this learning is crucial for the success of the project. It doesn't make sense to split and to give people second-hand learning. Then, of course, I'm not forcing anybody to be in the room. If you say, like, no, I don't want to be there, well, your choice. And everybody's invited, appreciated. Nobody's mandatory to be in, unless you feel like, oh, we really should ask Tom to be in the room because he's the only one that knows his stuff. In this case, like, well, please join us, and that is the thing. But this actually scales better than expected. Like some people are telling the right story, some people are guessing, but then, well, people are actually self-organizing. I mean, in some situations, it's okay to be a spectator. Even the process modeling, we usually have 3-4 active players, and but the people in the backseat are actually enjoying it. I'm seeing this evolving. This looks like the growing solution to my problem, and they might just come in with some comments and remark, everybody okay? Yes. So it's a little bit easier than it should be. Real problem is logistics, room size, oxygen, good food, and the beverages, this type of thing. And this might affect the result of the workshop a lot. And but for the numbers, yeah, up to 30 is manageable. More, you need more than one facilitator. And yep.
Okay, thank you. We're at time. Visit EventStorming.com and find Alberto in between. Thanks.
Yes, there's references here and all of this. Thank you.